So let's get started. We have moved from socialization, right? Chapter 3. We've talked about what in general is socialization. Feral children, isolated children. We've talked about the theoretical component, socialization of the self and mind, and Piaget's levels, operational stages. Let's talk about, again, what is socialization in a little bit deeper look at the definition. So here we're talking about socialization of the self and emotions is intended to turn us into conforming members of society, helps us avoid fear and embarrassment that are part of the socialization process, and shapes our behavior. So socialization is a subtle form of social control. So what exactly does that mean? Now, we all like to think we're not being controlled, but the socialization process is an important process in allowing us to become functional members of the society that we live in, the time, the place, the social location that we exist in, that we live in. And in order to do so, it has to, to a certain degree, passively control our behaviors so that we fit in with society just enough so that we can all work together as a society. So it is a subtle form of social control. Think about it this way. Did you drive to work or school in the past week on the wrong side of the road? In the last month? In the last year? You probably did not, and the reason you didn't is because you've been socialized to drive in accordance with the laws. Even on a less strict way, right, we are going to follow the social norms of our society. We're going to stand in line when there's a line, and not every culture has lines, so in another culture, if you grew up in another time or another culture, standing in line or cutting in front of people wouldn't feel uncomfortable, right? Wouldn't feel wrong. It feels wrong. It seems wrong, right? Because we're accustomed to following the norms, values, and mores of our society. So it controls us in the sense of shaping our behavior in everyday situations, and we've internalized it to the point where it feels natural, it feels normal. Think back to Oksana and her barking and shaking her head when she, put her head underwater. That, for many of us, would not feel normal or natural. I know I see her shake her head that way like a dog does, and for me, I have a sense of feeling uncomfortable, like it would hurt my neck. Is that because it would hurt my neck, or it's because I've been socialized to not move in that way, right? If you're one of those people who talks with your hands like me, you can't see me, but I'm over here making a video with no picture of myself, but I'm still talking with my hands, it feels natural and normal because it's part of how you've been socialized. Even if nobody's told you to do it, you see it, you hear it, it's part of your culture, right? Which, remember, is partially taken for granted, right? It's subtle forms of socialization, subtle forms of control. So we are very much part of our culture and our society, and we internalize those values, mores, and beliefs. And how do we do that? Well, it happens every single day in a variety of shapes and sizes. One of the ways that we start with socialization is with our family. So the people who are most socialized, actively socialized, are children. And it's mom and dad who tell you, no hitting, no yanking things out of your friend's hands, or no, yelling and throwing tantrums. Your parents are actively socializing, and you probably remember those things. Your friends were also socializing you. You brought something to school, like you were a little boy and you brought a pink water bottle to school, and the other boys were telling you, well, those water bottles are for girls. That's a gendered socialization. It's not that pink is necessarily for girls. It's our society has agreed that pink is a girl color and that blue is a boy color. This was not always so, by the way. It was the reverse at one point, where blue was the baby girl color. So we come to believe that's true. Our parents are gender socializing us before we're even born. They've done studies with infants. I say before we're born because they've already bought you balls and cars and blue things before you're born, and they bought you pink and princess things before you're born based on the gender they're assuming you to be based on your biological sex that they're assuming as well. So your friends and your family actively socialize you. Your neighborhood actively socializes you. Everybody's playing soccer. And everything is about soccer, and everybody's always running up and down the streets playing soccer. Chances are soccer is going to be a central force in your life as a child and maybe well into adulthood. And you're socialized into that culture, as opposed to what's like the current trend, which is to be socialized into only playing online. So staying in your room and your interaction with your friends is via a computer, via a game that you're playing together. So your friends, your family, neighborhood, your school is socializing you. I actually went to Fullerton College just like you guys, and so I'm an alumni of Fullerton College as well. And when I was attending school, my 16-year-old now, he was a toddler. And I had him in the preschool. It's an awesome preschool, by the way. I had received a grant to let him be in the school. And, some of the things that they did were much more progressive than what you would have normally seen from, preschools. The preschool he was at before, they were very much about boys do this, girls do that. And at this preschool, they were much more gender neutral and allowed the children to express their personality as opposed to trying to socialize them into this gendered behavior. And one of the things that, my son, I had always said with my son, wasn't that you're a bad boy, but that's inappropriate behavior. Very quickly, I saw the teachers adopt this that's inappropriate behavior concept. And so the school itself was a huge force in the way that he was socialized. Of course, we all know TV is a part of the socialization process, right? Media is constantly socializing us well into adulthood. The way we think, a lot of the prejudicial beliefs that we have come from the media. Some of it comes from our family and friends and neighborhood and school as well. But people don't realize that a lot of their gendered expectations come from how they're depicted on, say, Disney movies and cartoons. A lot of the racist stereotypes that like black people like watermelons, actually come from cartoons when you were a child. That's how you were taught those racist stereotypes. So you don't even know where you learned them, but somewhere along the way you learned them, right? So these are just examples of agents of socialization: religion, workplace, music, all of these things. Gendered socialization, specifically, we're talking about this because this goes along with what the assignment is at the end of this chapter. So you have gendered norms, messages, and roles. So gendered norms, remember, norms are everyday expectations, and gendered norms are everyday expectations for people that are considered one gender or the other. And we like dichotomies in our society, so we try to make everything a dichotomy, even though many things are on a spectrum. The reality is that there are 5 sexes, that even biologically, that sex falls on a spectrum. Think like a pendulum from one end to the other. So you have, on one end of the spectrum, you have what you would call gendered females, and on the other end of the spectrum, you have gendered males, or biological females and biological males, excuse me. And in between, you have people who are some combination of the two. This is actually much more common than you might be led to believe, because many people are reassigned at birth if they're born with somewhere within the middle spectrum. But it is as high as 1 to 2% of our society. So if you think about it in this respect, every time you see somebody who is redheaded, which is not extremely often, but often enough, we've all known somebody who's redheaded, about that same occurrence in society, you have somebody who falls within the middle biological spectrum of male to female. Some people are even unaware that they fall within that middle spectrum. It has to do with several different biological aspects we won't get into today. Nonetheless, we have these gendered norms, right? Men are supposedly stronger, women are weaker, right? And you will find products that re-socialize you, that they're passively socializing you to believe this. Men are bigger, women are smaller. So you'll see sometimes men have bigger hairbrushes, women have smaller hairbrushes, right? Workout stuff for men will say extra strong or extra tough. And for women, it'll say 3 levels of from fairly easy to moderately hard, assuming that you've already internalized the idea of a gender norm that men are stronger and women are weaker. So even when you're working out, you don't have the same ability as a man who, as a female, that as a man who would maybe possibly not work out. Right? To the same respect, look at things like hair removal products or hair products, and it's assumed that men have more hair, but we also forget how much women will remove hair from their body. So we have all these gendered messages, gendered roles, and gendered norms, right? So you're constantly being given these gendered messages in very passive ways, and you're not realizing that you're being socialized, right? That you're actually being, to a certain extent, controlled in your thinking and your behavior. And you're expected to play these gendered roles, right? So that women are supposed to act more feminine and men are supposed to act more masculine, whatever it is that your culture is telling you is feminine or masculine. And we're going to skip this one, the childhood through older years. And we kind of talked about how we tend to socialize more in childhood, but you can read through in the book the different scales, right? And then we will talk about assignment 4. So give me a minute. We'll end this one and we'll go for the next video will be assignment 4.